So I'm really honored and really happy to be in this panel because we've been working for a month now with Chloe Dubois, and it's all because of Volcano. And we met Kevin online, so it's the first time I'm being with them in person, and it's really exciting to see that we can work with people we don't know and do and power change in different communities globally and locally. So, and Marcelo, I'm meeting today, so we're all going to be exploring his way of being sustainable. And I would love to start with that question. You know, what is sustainability? We talk a lot about it, and we have like a department sometimes in our offices, but do we really understand what it means? And not only what it means as a concept, but what it means as an action maker, an action powered concept. So I would like to start with that question. So Kevin, what is sustainability for you?
For Four Ocean, we're actually a private organization. We're not a nonprofit. And we're registered as a public benefit corporation in the United States where we're legally responsible to have that social and environment impact.
Well, yeah, that's a good way of getting into sustainability. So Chloe, for you, what's sustainability?
Sustainability for us is that we aren't extracting resources faster than the planet can replenish those resources. So I think at the founding principle, that is what sustainability means. Then you look at different sectors and it transforms and morphs depending on the lens in which you operate in the world. So,
yeah, that's also sustainability. Marcelo has a more profound dimension of your concept of sustainability.
I personally been working with sustainability for quite a few years, and I felt sustainable is not enough in a moment where we are taking more resources than we have. So
yeah.
it's like you have a bank account and you are in zero all the time. There is a moment that you want to thrive, and the only way to thrive in this is being regenerative, that you can generate more resources than you take. So I've been working in the last few years in regeneration more than sustainability.
And I think that's a way of looking at the 21st century, because we're living in a time when we have inherited the 21st century thriving of humanity, and that was based a lot on being able to conquer resources, transform them really fast, consume them really fast, and then throw them out really fast. And we're at the beginning of the 21st century, and I do think that sustainability, more than a trend, it has to become one of our guiding principles. And I think, like Marcelo said, not only sustainability, because we're already in debt with the planet. You know, we are consuming 5 planets a year of what the planet can produce. So there's enough resource. We're talking about water today in the morning, and there's always the same amount of water. The dinosaurs had the same amount of water that we have. And for the next centuries to come. But how much of that water is accessible to us? Because of pollution. So, sorry. Because the cycle of water is perfect, so that's renewable and that's sustainable, but we're breaking it. So I think it's very interesting to talk about sustainability, but I would like to dive in on what has changed you as a person and getting you into this path of sustainability. So, Kevin, I'm going to start with you. Yesterday you were telling me that you got into a dark water river, started with a shovel, and with all the energy of the world, just trying to get all the contamination, you know, toilet contamination, sewage contamination, and waste contamination out of that river. What triggered you to do something like that?
Well, I moved down to Guatemala 5 years ago with my wife and friend here. She's from Guatemala. So she imported me to Guatemala. So, no, just immersing myself in the culture initially, seeing what the community needs, what was lacking, and I found that there's a big problem, especially where we operate in Department of Isabel, which is on the Caribbean side of Guatemala, is that there's no infrastructure in place to dispose trash and plastic responsibly. So that really got me thinking, what can I do to impact the environment that I live in? And that's when I contacted 4Ocean to expand their operations to Guatemala. And I thought 4Ocean was going to be a good example, not only because they're a for-profit company, they hire locals to do the work in the communities in which they operate. And it's also, having that economic impact as well. So we hire full-time employees 7 days a week. We pay more than minimum wage, and we also pay 100% of their health care as well. So not only do we have that big environment impact that 4Ocean has about collecting the pounds of plastic trash that we collect every day, we also have that big economic impact that's really needed in Guatemala.
No, definitely. Yeah. So take notes. This is sustainability. Trying to get all those KPIs into our work environment. And Chloe, what was like the tipping point that got you into this?
Yeah, for me, my background is in deep ecology and resource management, and it was a natural segue to get into waste management, in particular managing plastic pollution. About 11 or 12 years ago, I met a woman named Joanna Macy. She's an eco-philosopher from Berkeley, California, and she teaches about the work that reconnects, and it's about reconnecting humanity back to the natural world. And oftentimes in our westernized culture, there's no space to grieve over the environmental destruction that we're witnessing. And what this does is creates this tension between destruction of the planet and our ability to move beyond the overwhelm that we might feel when we see a clear-cut forest, an old-growth forest, an ocean filled with plastic. We feel very deeply the detriment of the planet, but there's no space to talk about that and to come together. So it was learning Joanna's work that helped inspire Ocean Legacy. We now run a program called EPIC, which is an acronym which combines education and research, policy and advocacy work, infrastructure development, and hands-on cleanup. So we run a lot of Canada's largest scale ocean cleanup initiatives. We're one of the most trained teams to go to some very remote, complex terrain, in combination with building out an entire recycling facility to actually take the materials that are being collected and transform them into something that can then be recirculated back into a closed loop economy. And then we'll work with all levels of government to help recommend policy, as well as develop education. To date, we've cleaned over 1,500 kilometers of coastline, removing 3 million pounds of waste. And we've been able to recycle more than and divert more than 2 million pounds of waste from landfill. In doing this, we've been able to provide over 900 jobs and very well-paid jobs. So there's a lot of potential and a lot of potential in the green economy in shifting towards more of a restorative economy rather than an exploitive or extractive economy. And I think all of us on stage are examples of practical ways in which we're all doing that within our community. So, yeah.
No, and I think one of the things that you were saying is to get everyone involved. So that's also part of sustainability, getting finance, getting government, getting civilians, getting companies. Everyone has to be a solution to the problem of, well, in the case of pollution. But I don't think extracting plastic from the ocean is sustainable. Do you think it's sustainable?
Yes, I do.
Well, my way of thinking is we have to not get plastic into water. So that's really what should be sustainable, starting from the way up. And, asking those questions. And sometimes when we see that destruction, it hurts, really, and I agree, I can feel it. But we only see what floats. We are only seeing like the cover of the superficial problem. When we see forests cut out, we're only seeing the superficial part of the problems. And then we say, oh, it's a natural disaster. And I don't think it's a nature disaster. I think it's a human disaster. And we have to start taking responsibility of those disasters that we're causing, because we see it every day. You know, in our country last week, a lot of people died because our river was blockaged by trash. So those stories really have to be, we have to have them forward, we have to have them close by, so that we don't forget that we have to start taking responsibility for the problems we're causing.
Yeah, and I think if we look at the model, the EPIC model, you can really take that model and apply it to any environmental disaster. You need education, you need policy, you need infrastructure, and you need cleanup. And these are the 4 components that we've been really able to integrate and merge together to create, in this case, trying to solve the plastic pollution crisis. Yeah, exactly. You need to change the culture and behavior.
Yes. So it starts with us. So I don't think the planet has a problem. I think the humans have a problem. And with that in mind, it's a very profound problem, no? Because we think it's out there and it's superficial. And when we had our first chat together as a group, we're very in sync into taking action, moving forward. Let's do something about this, and dig in, like with your shovel story, which I loved. But when Marcelo came into the conversation, he brought us all into a deeper level. And I think that's where we have to dig in as humanity. At a deeper level, what are we doing? What are we manifesting? What are we creating? Is this the world we want to live in? Is this, we probably love our kids and our grandchildren and our uncles and other human beings. And this is what we're constructing, you know. And I think it's very important to ask those fundamental questions. And Marcelo lives in a very different way than most of us probably do. So I want to ask you, tell us about your lifestyle and the community that you created. Because, about the community you created around it. Because it's not, I think it's an individual problem and also a communal problem. I think the solution is not in the I, but in the us. So connecting, I think sustainability should be about connecting what we're doing to the consequences of those actions, connecting with the people that need to work together, connecting with the soil, connecting with the air, and connecting with water, and all of the elements that we need to be alive. So Marcelo, how do we connect back?
So I feel we have this disconnection is starting with our disconnection from nature. The moment that we live totally disconnected from cities and as well disconnected from communities, we stop being this integral unit that we are part of an ecosystem. We completely withdraw from it. And what I can share is my personal experience. In a way, I came from living in a big city and totally disconnected from nature, and I saw how we are destroying the planet. And I started to say, okay, how can we fix it? And in a way, it's putting this Band-Aid in the problem, but not going to the root. And in the moment that I really connected with nature and I understood how, like, once you observe nature, you can see all the ecosystems, how they work. And if you start restoring the soil, restoring the ecosystems, restoring the oceans, and part of that is restoring ourselves and
Exactly.
as people of this ecosystem. And once you live in these healthy ecosystems, I create villages where we live in connection with nature, where we can live in contact with each other in a profound way where we care about each other. So we are not expecting the government to give us the solutions. We bring the solutions ourselves in our the way how we consume, the way how we grow our food, the way how we treat water, how we recycle, and as well how we work together towards common goals and finding solutions, and they start expanding into the broader community. So we start programs not only with our village, but the villages around, and as well that they have an economic impact for those villages to support themselves and making it, and that's when you can start really regenerating and producing more than you consume.
So that's a mind-shifting way of seeing how we're going to live our lives. And I do think that we have to question some truths that we have taken, we haven't questioned them, and we take them as immovable. So that we have to generate more money, and we have to have more. And I think the process of the donut economy that takes into account all of the different aspects of life, into account also money. we don't, we all want a little bit of money, and we all want access to things, but how do we keep the balance going? And I think that's what basically sustainability is about. It's about balance. And when you're sick and your body feels bad, you have half a degree of temperature up, or you have 1 degree, and you're like, oh, I feel so bad. I have to lie down. I'm sick. And as a planetary collective, we are raising our temperatures, and we're feeling bad. Today I asked a group of young people who felt stressed, and everyone lifted their hand up. And well, I would like to do that experiment. Who feels stressed in the past? Yeah, we all do. And when you do, and you go into nature, you do simple things, such simple things as to breathe again. And do it consciously, because we're breathing all the time. But when you take conscious of your breathing, that calms you down. When you have a glass of water, that calms you down. When you walk into the forest, that calms you down. And in Japan, there's a high rate of suicide. And they've been looking at the connection of nature on the well-being. So they've created this concept of forest baths. So nature is a healer in itself. And sometimes when we disconnect with nature and we think we're above it, and nature are just resources that are there to take, and we treat our forests like they're dumps, and we treat our rivers like they're sewages, and we just take without taking into account the consequences of that taking. I think humanity really has to learn how to give back. And I would like to ask that question. How do you feel that you're giving back working with ForOcean?
Not only with supplying full-time jobs that pay above minimum wage, is just being interactive with the community and the local schools to change that culture and the education that Chloe was talking about as well. So ForOcean tries their best to align with like companies to solve the problem, and it's also being immersed in the community and the culture in which you work.
And Chloe, I know you work with a lot of companies. How can companies, also ForOcean, how do companies can give back? How do we create the bridge between the action takers and the ones who are pushing forward solutions and the companies that are generating commerce around it? How do we connect one with each other?
That's a big question. I think, I know we're out of time. A really quick way that I think companies can give back is to do two things: to listen and to look to nature to know what to do. So nature teaches us everything we need to know, from infrastructure, urban design, how to interact within a community, and we need to listen to that. And the communities that a lot of our organizations are going in to help know what they need. So it's a matter of creating the space to listen and to reflect and implement what the communities are saying they need and what nature is teaching us.